welcome to Profiles. Our guest tonight is Eugenie Cottrell, one of the trustees of Animals in Need. Eugenie, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for asking me.
Now, we're going to talk a lot about Animals in Need later because it is something that you are incredibly passionate about, and it's a charity that's really worthy of highlighting here in Gibraltar. But before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about you so that the audience at home can get to know you. You were born in Gib, weren't you?
Yes, yes.
And grew up here and so on, and went through the school system and whatnot, and then went on to study law, am I right?
Yes, that's right, yes.
Tell me a little bit about what made you choose that.
I think I'd always had an interest in justice and the feeling, and I always felt passionate about the right and wrong of matters in life. And it's something, obviously, that was going to be challenged as soon as you start reading law, or you realise that there's so many grey areas in life about so many different things, and that law doesn't always equate to justice, as with something that we've been seeing through our charity work as well. So it actually broadened my view on life and morality and polarised views on many aspects and facets of life.
So there was that grey area of life, but I think that's part of maturity as well, isn't it? When you're younger, you're very black and white about things, and then as you grow older, you sort of realise that there are so many different sort of shades of grey that we have to compromise and deal with. So when you were studying, where did you study?
I started studying in the law degree in Southampton University, and later on I picked it up as a mature student and using the Open University, because I actually finished my studies once I had my children, my young children. I gave my studies a break and had my 3 children, and then I went on to finish my studies.
Yeah. So did you get married young?
Yes, yeah. I married young and had my children when I was young. Started 21 onwards. So, and I'm actually glad. I'm glad I did, because I think you need a lot of energy and a lot of to
cope with them,
to bring up.
So how old were they then when you decided to go back to your studies and sort of invest back into yourself?
16, 14, 12. So
yeah.
It's quite a difficult age.
I was going to say.
Yes.
And at this time, at this point, were you married? Had you separated? Were you doing this on your own?
Yeah, I was. By that stage, I had to get divorced, so I was bringing up the children with the help of my family, and I went back into my studies and worked full time and undertook my legal work as well, legal studies at the same time.
Goodness me, that's quite a lot really to take on. Yeah. I mean, being a single mum is a massive challenge in itself, but at the same time setting yourself the task of sort of further education as well, that's huge. But you say you had the support of your family through that.
Yes, I couldn't have done it without them. So I was very lucky, actually, and I had my employer who I was working for the Financial Services Commission at that stage. I was a senior regulator for the fiduciary services, and they were extremely supportive of my studying. So I was very lucky, both at home and with my employer. So I was able to undertake all this study work and work full time at the same time, plus look after the kids. So it was
it's kind of been
tiring.
It's non-stop for you, no?
Yeah, no, it was I was determined. I was determined to show my children that if you work hard, that you can achieve. And that you can change your life. So I wanted to lead by example. So I thought, well, you know, whatever they say now they're studying now. I said, well, I worked full time and I looked after you. So
yeah.
So we're not going to listen to complaints.
They chosen to follow you into law, any of them?
Well, my eldest son is studying law. He's reading law with business, and my daughter is reading fine art. So they're undertaking studies as well.
And the younger one?
He's still in school.
Still in school, so he's still got one at home.
Yeah, yeah.
But, I mean, you see, you've really gone from being a young mum to being a single mum to working full-time to support the family, you know, I mean, yes, with the support of your wider extended family, but at the same time, your education, doing that, and then you're throwing yourself head first into the charity.
Yes, that's right. No, it's been a tiring, a tiring time, but rewarding in many ways. I was determined to make a difference in a small way and to change what I could in society, if I could in any way. Once I finished, towards the end of my studies, I thought that I would like to give something back. I had a lot of people who helped me, and when I was on a very low ebb in my life, so I was determined that, like them, I would step up when I could and do something for others, in turn pass it down, as it were. And when I looked around, and a cause that was very close to my heart was women in need, and at the time, well, there is a lot of support and many remarkable people are doing wonderful work. So I then basically stumbled across this area of animals, and particularly dogs, and I saw that it was an area that really needed a stronger voice than what we've had in a while.
Yeah, so that became your passion.
Yeah.
And was animals something that you always loved as a kid? Were you sort of, or was it just really the helplessness of them that motivated you to be involved?
I think a bit of both, because a bit of both, because we'd had a dog when we were growing up, and he brought a lot of joy and a lot of comedy to our lives, and that I think set the basis. But I think, having gone through a lot of low ebbs in my life, I think the vulnerability and voicelessness of animals appealed to me. And my first visit to the shelter in La Linea, the huge amount of dogs. I think at that stage there was 750 dogs, in desperate circumstances, needing homes. And I think it was the futility and the lack of hope in their eyes, and they're just waiting for death, really. And I think that struck a chord. And I thought, this is something that, really, if I can, I'd like to assist. So being so close to Gibraltar, I started talking to the owner of the shelter, who's Dutch, because the shelter is actually funded by Dutch and a Dutch charity called Animals in Need. And he was explaining the background to the shelter and the link to Gibraltar that I hadn't realised there was one at all. And it transpires that approximately 200 dogs are connected or are abandoned by people from Gibraltar.
Did that make you angry?
No, I was surprised, actually. I was shocked. But then obviously there's documentation. There's, when you hand a dog over, you sign, there's a document that you sign off the ownership of the animal, an abandonment form. So it was a figure that was reconcilable. It's not just picked up. And
I mean, did it make you cross that kind of people from your hometown would abandon dogs in that way?
Well, it actually made sense to me, because I think as a society sometimes we would rather do things furtively. And here in Gibraltar we all know each other and know of each other, and it makes it harder. It's not a judgment at all on our part. It's just sad. Sometimes people really have to. There's many genuine reasons, and sometimes dogs are better handed over to people who will help. There's no question about that. We see it all the time. And sometimes we're actually relieved and wish that some people would actually hand their dogs over. So it's just the suffering that the animal endures, the mourning period that they go through. Sometimes dogs are, they sleep on beds, sofas, and then they're handed over to this cage with another 10 animals. The dog will inevitably be attacked. The newcomer is attacked, regardless of how much the dogs are looked after during the day. And the mourning period, I find, is always the hardest to see, that the crying, the suffering, the abandonment, the not understanding what's going on. That's pretty hard to watch. there's a lot of suffering. Whoever thinks that's the easiest option, or the dog will automatically be will be adopted, or chances are the dog won't. Chances are the dog's going to die. The dog will pick up diseases, illnesses. The dog will be attacked.
It's a very good motivation then for you to activate and to do what you've done. We're going to go to a break now. When we come back, you're going to tell me more about animals in need.
Thank you.
Join us after the break when we'll be hearing more from Eugenie Cottrell.